Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Lou. You are listening to the Raptors Reaction Podcast. The Hello and Welcome Podcast is a presentation of ToonieBet, online sportsbook and casino. Raptors lose tonight, 116 to 107 against OKC. Weird game, very weird game, considering the fact that the Raptors staged an incredible comeback at one point, 27 to 2 between the end of the third quarter and midway through the fourth quarter. OKC went on a very long drought, over 6 minutes. Raptors defense was excellent in that time. Scotty Barnes was like superhuman, really, defensively at moments in that stretch. And that allowed the Raptors to erase a 25-point lead and tie the game at 101 with about 4 minutes and change left. But unfortunately, the Raptors get really sloppy, turn the ball over 4 straight plays. OKC capitalized. I got to give them a lot of credit. Cason Wallace played incredible tonight. Matched a career high with 27. Can't believe his career high is 27. The way he played tonight, it was unbelievable, honestly. Genuinely unbelievable game from Cason Wallace. Credit to Lou Dort, who is one of the least appealing watches for me personally. And I say this as a fan of Team Canada. I appreciate what he does every time he puts on the Canadian jersey. I'm a fan of what he does for Canada. And I'm a hater for everything else that he does in his basketball career because it is nasty to watch a man foul you nonstop for 40 minutes and then flop every single time. There's not even real contact. He just flops a lot. Plus he injured BI, which is always a personal matchup, I think, in this one against Brandon. But credit to Lou because he made 2 absolute dagger pull-ups. One against Brandon Ingram on the baseline and another one against RJ Barrett stepping back to help close out the game. And honestly, it felt like, okay, OKC had played great. They definitely dominated the second and third quarters. They built a big lead. The Raptors were sloppy and at times soft against the Thunder, which is a common habit. You see the Raptors, not playing up to the level of physicality, not being able to counter the other team in when they take it up a level the Raptors aren't able to respond. And you saw a lot of mistakes, but at the same time, you knew that, okay, if you can get OKC into a close game, Raptors got hot from 3. That really helped them come back as well. Jacoby Walter certainly was, throwing some daggers out there, and it's good to see him continue to play well. Jamal Shead with a huge 3 to tie it at 101 as well. But you just felt like, okay, if you can get them to a close game, then like without their closer in Shea, Raptors have a good shot. But instead, the Raptors got him to a tie game, and OKC had the last laugh. You got to credit the reigning champions. You really do. Like I was kind of like pretty upset with how the Raptors were playing. Not necessarily because of the fact that they allowed some of the threes, because to a point it got a little ridiculous. Lou Dort hitting rainbow threes. Isaiah Joe had back-to-back 4-point plays. I don't remember the last guy to have back-to-back 4-point plays. Just absolutely ridiculous stuff. They had a 6-point possession on one of them because Joe hit the 3 despite being fouled by Jamison Battle, who had his foot underneath, so they called that a flagrant. So they counted the 3, gave him the free throw. He knocked down the free throw. Then OKC scored on that possession. So that was a 6-point play. Caruso knocking down threes, like Aaron Wiggins going off, like there was just so many things happening. And then in the meantime, there was just a lot of like OKC getting offensive rebounds, largely through Isaiah Hartenstein, who dominated the game in the minutes that he played. I felt like he was a huge impact because Chet Holmgren certainly was not a factor whatsoever. And yeah, OKC was playing well until they weren't, for that stretch. And again, defensively, that's where I credit the Raptors for turning it around because, quite frankly, the Raptors had been blown out so many times at home. Not just blown out, but at times I feel like they folded, they capitulated, and they didn't really even have a fight in sort of how the game went down. At least tonight they fought and they went down swinging. They lost, but I can kind of accept this a lot more. The Raptors are a very strange team because they're much better on the road than they are at home. They're actually one of the best road teams in the league, but they're close to 500 now at home. And if they actually lose to San Antonio tomorrow, which is a strong possibility, they might just be 500 at home, which is kind of unbelievable for a team that has been, a playoff position all year. The fact is that they've been way better on the road than they have been at home. But say what you want, man, but you can't be blown out at home. You just can't. Especially as a good team, you got to maintain some standards, right? This isn't the last 2 years where Raptors can, dog it a little bit of their tanking, whatever. Okay, they have no standards, just throw them out the window. This year, they're trying to win. And this game looked like how they got pushed around by the Knicks twice in Scotiabank Arena. This looked like how they got pushed around twice by Boston in Scotiabank Arena, one of them without Jaylen Brown as well. This looked like the loss they had to Philadelphia at home after the Raptors beat them in OT. They followed it up by getting smacked by 30. This looked like the game they lost to Charlotte in Toronto. They beat them once, obviously, with the crazy series of plays at the buzzer. But then Charlotte comes in and beats them by 25 after the game. Darko was like, I'm really proud of how the team played. No, come on, dog. Like, it looked like it was going to be another one of those. And to their credit, the Raptors fought back and put together at least an entertaining product. Because at the end of the day, if you're playing at home for the fans, you do not give up, period. Right? Unless it's a tanking season, you do not give up at home. So I credit the team for fighting. I credit Scotty for leading that fight. There were some times in the first quarter where I felt like, okay, Scotty didn't really feel like he was into the game. Obviously, he missed the last game with personal reasons. He's able to come back here tonight. Went through a pretty short warm-up as well. So, I don't know sort of, where he was at in terms of, he's usually all over the place. His energy is like so evident, so clear. First quarter didn't look that strong. But then second quarter, Scotty was a huge part of that. 2 snatch steals, like it was Yu-Gi-Oh! Against Alex Caruso, back-to-back, just ripping him, bringing the ball up, going both times for the layup on the ensuing steal. The next play down, I enjoyed Caruso saying, "Yo, someone else bring it up, bro. I don't want to see Scotty like that." Like, that's impressive. That was really impressive to me. And Scotty led a nice charge there by the Raptors' second unit guys. Jacoby knocking down some threes, helping in that stretch too. But, Scotty basically, like, from that start of the second quarter onward was, like, really, really locked in. I also thought that, like, the start of the fourth quarter, when the Raptors made their big comeback, Scotty was sensational. I mean, some of the defensive plays that he made, first off, he had 7 stocks, okay? So 3 steals, 4 blocks. That's the most combined steals and blocks he's had in a game this season. Already pretty ridiculous, right? 7 stocks is already ridiculous, but it's also the manner of those, because I'm describing 2 of the steals. He's just straight up ripping it from Alex Caruso and going the other way for layups. Just straight up one-on-one, mano a mano, I'm going to take the ball from you. That's just dominant stuff. And then him chase down block on Chet Holmgren at the basket, very reminiscent of his one-on-one stop against Chet in their win over OKC on the road. For some reason, OKC decided to give the last shot to Chet. And Scotty was able to block him one-on-one on a step-back jumper. Again, very few players are able to just straight up block Chet shooting a jumper. I mean, that guy's 7 foot plus shooting a shot above his head. Like, how many guys can even reach that? But in this stretch too, Scotty pressuring the ball at half court, forcing an inbounding violation going into the backcourt. Raptors get the ball on a turnover. Scotty, coming in from the blind side, ripping, I believe, either Lou Dort or Caruso. Both of those guys, one of those guys was trying to drive it on Brandon. Brandon did a good job sliding his feet, keeping the guy in front, making them turn. And then upon the turn, Scotty came over with the double. The block one-on-one against, some of the blocks tonight too, like McCain had one where he was coming off a high pick and roll. Scotty's defending the big, so he's like dropping back a little bit. And McCain takes like one dribble and goes for like a floater from the free throw line. That's usually a gap that's open, in particular against a defender that's dropped back a little bit. But somehow Scotty was able to stay on his toes and kind of jump slightly forward to close the gap and block the floater from like the elbow. Like, that should be an open shot. To be honest, that's a low percentage shot that the attacking player is already kind of conceding, like, yo, I can't go to the rim because he's gonna block me, but I'm gonna use his counter of a floater, and Scotty still blocked him. It was like, damn, that was impressive. The block on Wallace, who was an absolute menace. Like I said, Wallace and Dort and Joe, those guys are the ones who absolutely led this the entire way from start to finish. The block on Wallace towards the end of the game too, another play where he, contested at the rim and forced a miss, a rare run from Cason, who only missed 5 shots tonight. Like, his energy was just unbelievable on the defensive, and he didn't even look 100%. Like I said, like, he didn't really have like the strongest warm up. He, Didn't necessarily start the game particularly strong, was kind of like floating a little bit out there, had to pick up his energy. End of the game, part of the reason the comeback ended was Scotty had to sit for like solid like 2 minutes. Maybe because of exhaustion, maybe because, or more likely because he probably bumped knees with Hartenstein on the drive. Um, so, you know, it didn't complete the comeback, but man, that's what I want to see from my franchise leader is like, okay, we got nothing tonight. We're down 25, at home against OKC, and they're shorthanded, man. No Shea, no Jalen Williams, no AJ Mitchell. A lot of the top guys for them are out on the season. In particular, you didn't have the reigning MVP in your building, man. You got to capitalize on this, and you're well rested too. You had an off day in Toronto. They didn't practice yesterday, so like you had the opportunity here. But then you made too many mistakes, you're down. Is your team going to step up? And that's a lot of the time when they look to the leader. Like, yo, are you going to come up? Because if you come up, we'll fight with you, right? If you're a leader and you play like this, we'll fight with you. And that's why I thought that's what dragged the Raptors back into it. Very impressive that in a game where the team was ultimately they lost by 11, they lost by 9, sorry. And they were down by double digits for the majority of the game. Very impressive that Scotty was still a plus 18 in a game like this. Very big outlier. CMB was a minus 15. Somehow Brandon Ingram minus 23. He did not play well in the Lou Dort matchup once again. And, I think that's partially to blame. But everyone else is kind of floating in and around like basically like plus or minus like 5. Scotty's the one outlier, plus 18. I think that really speaks to the energy that he brought. So credit to him. It felt like he had to really fight through it tonight, and he gave the Raptors a real shot in the arm. Besides that, though, I gotta say some of the defensive breakdowns from the Raptors tonight were really uncharacteristic of how they played all season. I say this because, look, the Raptors had been a pretty good defense all year. I mean, you asked why the Raptors are, now 10 games over 500, previously 11. The reason for that is because their defense has been elite. They've been top 5 defensively in and around in that range for the majority of the year. And they came into this game, 5th on defense. And I'm not even saying that the Raptors weren't the victim of some bad or like some lucky shot making, because OKC made a smattering of ridiculous shots. I'll credit to them. Certainly, these are a championship tested group. And with a couple guys missing, some pretty significant guys missing, a lot of secondary guys stepped up and scored, right? So, I want to give them that credit. I'm not trying to disrespect them at all. I respect this team a ton. But I think for me, the disappointing part watching this live and then watching some of the plays back was just like the Raptors just weren't on the same page on so many defensive sequences. And I just didn't quite understand why. I mean, yes, OKC is able to move the ball effectively side to side and pick and roll and go with different guys to screen the ball. And, they played a smart team game, right? No Shea, they got to move the ball more. OKC is not usually a high ball movement team. Tonight they were. Okay, so that's credit to them, right? The fact that they had this gear in them is very impressive and very becoming of a reigning champion who should be repeating this year. But I watched it and I'm like, man, how many pick and rolls are the Raptors going to screw up, right? Guys where the communication wasn't there, allowing a guy to turn the corner. Communication isn't there, allowing a guy to shoot an open 3. Sometimes over helping. Matchups where it's like Chet's trying to like dig his way onto a, drive against CMB who's right there with him. You don't need to, RJ Barrett doesn't need to leave his man one pass away and try to go in for a steal, come up short, and then allow the kick out pass for an open 3 to go in. It's just like sequences like that were just absolutely, not smart. Or sequences like when Brandon Ingram was on the fast break, Scotty's calling for the ball, running ahead of the play. Brandon doesn't go throw the pass, which is fine if he's going to make the layup, but he misses a point-blank layup and going the other way. OKC knocks down a 3. It's like, if you didn't have so many of those sequences, and again, the Raptors just screwed up so many like basic pick and roll coverages tonight, you wouldn't even be in the position of having to make a 25-point comeback. And yes, you climb the mountain, you get up there, you're like, wow, that was great. The real mountain is the 48 minutes, right? So yes, you were able to match them with the last lap to go, and then they lap you once again at the end. Part of that is because they just did not deserve to win a game like this because of how many mistakes they made. And I credit OKC for their execution, for their toughness. for the swagger that they played with, their confidence. Like, they dominated the Raptors for the majority of the game. They took away, for large portions, Scotty's impact on the game. They took away Brandon's impact on the game. Lou Dort, again, is probably the best defender in the world against Brandon. So all that's credit to them. And IQ took a while to get going, although he did get hot late in the fourth quarter, and finished with 17 points. But, like, I just thought the Raptors were really disappointing in how they executed. And CMB screwed up a lot of switches tonight. Even late in the game, allowing Cason Wallace to drive one-on-one against them. That's one of the best things CMB does, is the ability to switch, keep a man in front. And then if someone's going to drive on him, being able to absorb it with his very strong, powerful chest, and then being able to sort of like keep the man down when he's able to block him at the rim if they get all the way there. Like, that didn't happen late in the game either for them. And then, of course, beyond just the frustrating issues that sort of breakdowns, because you shouldn't allow this many points to OKC. I don't even care if they're hot from three. Like, just based on the guys that they had available, the Raptors, and the type of plays they were running, the Raptors were just not executing in the half court. I mean, freaking Alex Caruso had 14 points in the first half. Like, come on, man. That's outrageous. That's actually outrageous. Alex Caruso should not score 14 points in the entire game, let alone in a half. But what was the most infuriating part, of course, was the end of the game, where after the Raptors tie it, Jamal Shead pulls up for three. OKC tries to go under on a screen. Jamal, aggressively shoots the three, which is the right read, even though he's a poor shooter. Knocks down the three, and it's tied at 1-1, and now you got momentum on your side. First off, OKC's in the midst of a 6+ minute drought at that point. If they go quick on offense after a made shot, you should be able to set your defense. Raptors don't set their defense, don't get back. They maybe relax a little bit considering they finally got the score tied again, erased 25 points from the deficit, but then it allowed Wallace to drive to the basket once again. You shouldn't let anybody drive to the basket like that. You just shouldn't, right? Especially after a make. Your defense should have converged, first and foremost, and you should have contained him at the perimeter. But then, on top of that, the Raptors go into this infuriating stretch where they had 4 straight turnovers. And this is by everybody. Like, everybody had a hand in this. But the first one was after the made play. The Raptors drew a quick inbound. They try to counter back quickly. OKC's already back in transition. So it wasn't like, okay, Scotty's on a breakaway. He was trying to throw a pass to get him free. Like, I understand that. This was just Jamal Shead trying to throw a quick hit-ahead pass to Scottie, a solid 40 feet. But both Hartenstein and Chet were back. What did you want Scottie to even do with that if he caught it? So they threw the pass to him. It was a little bit long. Scottie tried to corral it. There was a loose ball, and again, he's at a numbers disadvantage. And OKC gets the ball, and they go back the other way. They score. Or a play where, they had a play going out of bounds. I think Scottie drove. That's where he got bumped, and he had to come out the game. So, okay, he comes out the game. But the Raptors are inbounding from under the basket. Raptors are typically a pretty good team at executing baseline out of bounds plays. Like, they're really good, and they're very good at especially finding a cutter going right underneath the basket for a short inbound and a quick layup. But they go for the baseline and out of bounds play. Credit to OKC for the way they defended, and they cut off a lot of the first option. They think they try to look for the cutter underneath first. That didn't materialize. Then they try to go to BI curl into the corner. Lou Dort hugging, grabbing, humping his way into defending a player once again, so they couldn't get the ball to Brandon. So then they got to reset to the top. But, that's normal. Like, you have 3 options on an inbound play. The cut to the basket, the curl to the corner, or you throw to the top for a reset, right? Like, that's just basic, inbound play. Like, everybody has that. Raptors try to throw the ball to the top. They turn it over. They give up a fast break, and then they give up a 3-point shot to Joe, who knocks it down. All of a sudden, now you're down 5. Then the next play down, they have a very obvious post-up where Brandon Ingram's got Lou Dort on him, and they force the pass to him, but it takes so long, and there's maybe so much pressure on the play that once Brandon gets the ball, he's already on the sideline, so he has kind of only one direction to go. Lou Dort, again, is all over him, and then a double team comes from behind him, I believe, like Caruso, and they get the steal, and they go the other way, and again, they score. So it's just like, okay, fine. Finally, Darko has to call that timeout. They only had 2 at that time. Still over 2 minutes left. So, I don't know. Maybe he was trying to save it or something. But he finally calls the timeout, tries to rally the group, and then the next play down, Scotty Barnes turns the ball over. And it's just like, all right, man. Like, we really did this whole comeback, and we just did not keep our composure in crunch time. And I think it's weird because the Raptors have had other collapses recently. Tonight, they actually played their way into a close game. So I'm not going to really like knock them too much for it. This isn't like when they collapsed against Minnesota or Orlando or the Clippers or the Knicks. Those games that were protecting leads of double digits going into the fourth quarter or even in the third quarter in the loss to New York. This one, they just kind of like, I don't know. Like, they were playing great. They were executing, even offensively against OKC's pressure defense. They did a really good job. RJ had a couple tough buckets. Jacoby, credit to him. He was great off the bench shooting the threes. Scotty going to the basket. Brandon getting the and one. Brandon drawing a double team, feeding CMB for a foul into the basket. Like, they're actually handling the pressure really well at certain points. IQ knocking down threes on the outside, which is exactly what they needed to do on a night like this, is just to be the outlet. But I don't know. I think they'll really regret some of that at the end. And I think for me, it's not just the ending, though. I think that they were too sloppy to start this game. And look, I'm not too mad, as you could tell. I'm annoyed because if you watch this game, you would be annoyed. But I think for me, the biggest thing was just they squandered an opportunity to protect home court against a shorthanded opponent. You already got the luck of not facing Shea because he's injured. And Jalen Williams, who's barely played this season, it feels like. You got to be able to handle this. And I think that when they look back on the tape, because that's all they'll do, because they won't practice, so just look at the tape, and then they'll look ahead to tomorrow when they face San Antonio, who are actually playing even better than OKC. So that's likely another loss. But when they look at the tape, they're just going to see how often they screwed up on defense. Like, you shouldn't even allow Isaiah Joe to shoot 11 threes, man. Like, the one thing he wants to do is shoot threes. Like, so how are you going to let him have 11? Right? Like, and also, if you're going to foul him on a flagrant foul for a closeout because you're late, the next play cannot be another late closeout where you foul him. Like, you got to hug this man the whole time. Like, come on, something like that. Or like, look, I want to give Cason Wallace credit because he played tough as nails tonight, and he was awesome, matched the career high 27 points. He was great. But, like, how many times are you going to allow this man to turn the corner downhill on you? Yes, he knocked out some threes, but the game plan should still be pretty consistent. Like, look, he might hit some threes that will hurt, but he'll kill you going downhill because he's more athletic than some of your perimeter guys. You need to be giving him enough of a gap so that you can then close out on his drives, where it's not like he's like De'Aaron Fox, where you're going to see again tomorrow. Like, he's not that quick of a player. You needed to stay in front of him. And a lot of that was just down to the Raptors either not being in the right positions, not making the right reads, or not making the right switches. And that, to me, is what's more annoying, even more than how they closed the game. But at least credit to them. They fought like crazy. They got themselves back into position. And OKC, they are a really tough opponent, and they played really well tonight. So credit to them. They fully deserve the win. But Raptors lose tonight. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from one of our beloved sponsors. And then when we come back, we'll take your questions.
This segment is brought to you by Table Fare and Social. Get your pregame bites and after-work drinks at Table.
It's a great location, right across the street from the arena and just steps away from Union Station and the Metrolinx bus terminal.
Will, I love my wedge salad, but there's plenty of options at Table. What should we have next?
Oh, we could have salad for days, my friend.
Oh, you're talking about salad days? I love salad days, man. They got a different salad for every day of the week. You can never get tired of the options there.
Oh yeah, I heard about this place. This was your go-to lunch spot forever. You always said the lettuce was so crispy.
Man, it's so crispy and fresh, and now this can be your go-to meal before Raptors games.
I like that. Grab a pregame salad at Table Fare and Social right across from the arena.
Okay, we're going to take your questions on the game here. Credit once again to Karem, who's been going through the chat, collecting your top questions. So if your question doesn't make it, it's blame Karem. Or maybe if you want your question to go on there, maybe say nice things for Big K before, you get it on stage here. So, okay, Karem, let's start with the money, man. What we got? All right, first one from Sashim sends in $10. Thank you. That 6-minute stretch was some of the most intense regular season basketball I've ever watched. We lost focus for a minute, and the game was over after that. Yeah, I think that was really impressive. Like, that was, again, like I said, Scotty leading the charge with that, but also the effort by other guys, Jamal, Jacoby, Brandon stepping up in some of his defensive sequences there as well. CMB being able to rotate and close out, because I gotta say, I was kind of like, CMB was not playing good defensively the first like 3 quarters to me, especially based on his standards, which are very high. So I'm holding him to a high standard, but his standard, because he's been playing great, it was very intense. And I think what was equally impressive was that, okay, usually when you play great defense, you're able to get out in transition. And the Raptors did hit some transition, but I also liked how tough the Raptors were playing offensively. IQ with sort of like playing off 2 feet, drawing fouls, Brandon Ingram, handling just like the constant harassment by Lou Dort. Jacoby making tough shots, being very determined to step in to some of those threes that he was shooting. Jamal being able to, play make as well. Like RJ having a little tough like turnaround, like spin back his drive and then, get deep and then sort of spin back for the little turnaround hook shot, like the little push that he does. They played really tough in that stretch. And I think, look, I know we kind of like, we don't have a lot of signature wins in the season. Like, that's undeniable. And the Raptors usually lose to like the upper echelon teams. In fact, the Raptors, outside of beating OKC, have not really beaten an upper echelon team. And that is frustrating. And it does really hammer in the idea that the Raptors are quote unquote pretenders, which is a very annoying place to be. But I really hope the Raptors like take some level of pride in knowing that, like, okay, that is a level that we can access. We just did that. How do we access that more? And how do we hit that gear? And how do we flip that switch? Who's going to be leading us in that stretch? Which lineup do we need to have? Which tough-minded players we need to have on the floor for those moments, so that we don't suffer the bigger leads in the bigger sort of deficits in the first place, and then maintain that level of energy? Because that was very impressive, and that was very fun to watch. Next question here. This one from Arsh, who sends in $2. Matt's potential sweep comments were killing me. Yeah. Oh man. Matty D, buddy, come on, dog. It was tough. I think he had mentioned midway through that comeback in the fourth quarter that OKC had only been swept by one team recently, and that was like Indiana in 2024. So, it kind of really built up the anticipation for this game. You're like, oh wow, the Raptors are there, and I think in the moment it did help me get hype, which I think is part of the goal of a announcer like that. But towards the end I was like, damn, okay, missed opportunity there. But still, like, look, Matt was feeling it, man. And when Matt said we were right there, we need this, and they start hitting it, that's a shot of like, endorphins basically as a Raptor fan. So I appreciate Matt for that. All right. Next question. Okay, Darko killed us with those fourth quarter lineup substitutions. Made no sense. I mean, maybe I'm misremembering the substitution pattern, but I mean, certainly the comeback was good. I think I wish he had called the timeout on that inbound for RJ, because I think it was like they just weren't getting the ball in, and I think the play was happening right in front of Darko, like on that side like the Raptors bench was on the offensive end. In this case, like, I wish he had called a timeout, because just set up something. The Raptors had also expended a ton of energy getting themselves into that position to tie the game. So, in hindsight, I wish in the moment he felt that, he's like, yo, please just like get a breather in here. Let's drop a good play. We're always pretty good at, baseline out of bounds plays. Let's get something going, because, we have already come this far. Now we got to make sure we close out. But I think some of the issues with the lineups tonight, actually, I don't really feel like there were too many issues. I mean, to be honest, perfectly, I thought it was fine. He gave Grady a chance to play in the first half. He already made him like essentially the 11th man with Battle coming in before him. Grady didn't play well, so he didn't play him in the second half, right? Okay, I can live with that. That's a good decision. Mamu usually plays well, but it's feast or famine with Mamu. Tonight was famine, so let's not play Mamu. I thought that was the right call there. We have to lean heavily on Scotty tonight. Let's play him for most of the fourth quarter. He started him with the fourth quarter. That really helped propel the comeback. Only reason Scotty came out the game was because he bumped knees. Like, that's normal. You got to come out for that. So I actually, like, trust me. I mean, if there's one person that is not afraid to sort of like ruffle some feathers and call out Darko when it needs to be called out. I think I've proven my track record on that, but I don't really think that that's something I agree with tonight. So next question, Jacoby Walter brought the Raptors back to life in the fourth quarter. Yeah, certainly his shot making was absolutely massive. Look, the Raptors have this dire need for shooting. They are one of the poorer 3-point shooting teams. When they get to the playoffs, it is absolutely going to be one of their downfalls. Is that ability to hit threes. And I was watching Jacoby a lot pregame. He was one of the first guys to come out for the team. Basically, it was like him and Battle were like the first two to get shots up. And a lot of his focus obviously is getting 3-point shots up. Different reps, different types of shots, catch and shoot threes, contested catch and shoot threes, from behind, from in front, all sorts of stuff. Basically, his entire drill is just 3-point shooting. And I noticed one thing, and maybe this is not like a significant thing, but so he usually shoots with Ivo Simanic, which is one of the Raptors' assistant coaches. They usually put Ivo and assign him to like the first round picks. So Ivo has been personally working out with Grady, with Jacoby, and now CMB as well. So I do feel like in terms of like their quote unquote lead developmental coach, if they have such a thing, feels like Ivo has been that guy, or maybe he's the guy that tackles a lot of young guys. But anyways, one of Ivo's tips to Jacoby was to make sure that he was like, he was starting to be like a little twisted on some of his threes, and he just basically got him to sort of like open up his stance a little bit and sort of just like, I guess, stay more square to the basket on some of those shots. This is not a major adjustment. I'm sure these kind of the small tweaks happen over the course of the season, but it felt like that really helped Jacoby finish out his drill really strong. And I don't know if that had a carryover effect to this game in terms of how he performed. I don't know if it's just that simple, but he really was able to knock down some tough shots tonight. OKC is another overhelp type of team, just similar to the Raptors, so they'll give up the 3-point line on these drives to protect the paint. And a lot of times, Scotty was able to kick out to Jacoby in the corners. Jacoby's been good in the corners all season. He's close to that 50% mark. But then he also knocked down some threes from the wing, which I think was really big. That's where he's been struggling and more inconsistent, is the longer shot from above the break. So he was able to knock those down today. So, yeah, pretty good, man. Next question. Kind of wish the Raptors played Jakob tonight instead of tomorrow. We needed his size tonight. Yak doesn't make any difference against Wemby. You know what? I agree with you, actually. So, look, I understand if they don't want to play Yak on back-to-backs. That's, like, look, they're clearly going to have to manage the thing, right? I'm actually just happy that Yak is back, right? Jakob looked really good. Well, not really good, but very close to himself in the game against Milwaukee, and it had been literally almost 3 months since we've seen Jakob look close to himself. So I was already really encouraged with that. You have a back-to-back here, so you got to make that choice. Now, granted, I think that if they had played him, as they planned against San Antonio, what they would have done was to give him 2 off days, because they played Sunday, off Monday, off today, play against San Antonio, then be off 2 more days before the Raptors play again on the weekend. Like, maybe that was the idea, to sort of maximize the intervals in which he could have rested. But I think if they could have done it matchup-wise, this was a better matchup for him. I agree with you. He's not going to do much against San Antonio. I mean, look, I don't think anyone's going to do much against Wemby, but I would honestly bring him off the bench in the San Antonio game if he played in that one, because I would rather have a mobile combination of CMB and Scottie to sort of pressure and get under Wemby defensively. No guarantee that that's going to work, but I'd rather do that than last game, which, if you remember, way back to the start of the season in October, they went to San Antonio, and watching Jakob try to guard Wemby, who was playing a lot, kind of like a point center or point alien, basically. But watching, like, Yak play Wemby on the perimeter legit looked like a father playing his son. Like, it was unseemly how bad it was. So, yes, I actually would have liked it if Jakob played here tonight, but whatever. I think the bigger thing that they're maintaining with Jakob is just, can he still stay available? And I think the decisions aren't as much in terms of, like, what's the best matchup. It's just, what's the best way we can, like, keep Jakob in the game and keep playing him on a consistent basis. So, next question. So, is Scotty actually hurt or just bumped knees and misses at most one game? I mean, I'm sure there'll be updates provided post game. I'm sure reporters will ask about it. I don't usually see lots of updates post game on some things like this, but ultimately, ultimately, I think for Scottie, like, it looked like he bumped knees with Hartenstein, had to sit for a little bit, but then came back to finish the game. So I imagine that he'll be okay. I think the report said he had a quad bruise, and now he's questionable Wednesday against San Antonio. So we'll see. Maybe he'll play tomorrow. Maybe he won't. It's a bruise, so you got to see how he's probably going to get an ice, and go to sleep and wake up and see how he gets going tomorrow. I don't know. Another one here. Shouldn't come as a surprise that we're still a level below the elite teams in the league. Still a huge step forward from the last couple of years. Stay patient. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's the big picture view. And that's sort of how the org has sort of handled it for most of the season. Sometimes it's not, admittedly, as maybe a more impatient person, I do. It does come across as a little bit annoying to hear that, but I think it is the right thing. In terms of assessing the situation, I think Darko's maintained that perspective. Bobby's maintained that perspective. So, yeah. By the way, speaking of Darko, I did like this. Okay. I like that he actually critiqued the team tonight. You know what? I haven't heard the whole press conference yet, but I actually am really encouraged by some of the post game quotes that have been put out by the team's reporters here. Because I think for me, like, I never want to hear those things where it's like you lose and then there's just rationalizations for why you lose, or they're like, hey man, you did great tonight. We got slapped, but we did great tonight. Like, there wasn't any of that from Darko tonight, which I really appreciate from him, because he sometimes has a tendency to do that, and I feel like instead of protecting the team, it makes it worse. So here's one quote, courtesy of Michael Grange of Sportsnet. Quote, "That was not us, Darko Rakovic, on the contrast between the first quarter and the fourth quarter. Defensive effort was really bad, basically, in the second and third quarters there. But yes, that was not the Raptors, and that's why it should be disappointing that they didn't play like that." And another one here, which I think is actually a better assessment of the game, Darko Rakovic says, quote, "I think that our team has a lot of motivation. I think that our team has a lot of grit, a lot of energy. The area that we need to get better at is focus." And certainly Raptors' focus was to be blamed for some of their defensive miscues in the second and third quarters. And then I think obviously the lack of focus popped in with the 4 straight turnovers in crunch time after they had just come back. Like, the Raptors proved 2 things to themselves tonight. One, that they can lock in and play at a high level, even in a crunch time scenario against a really great team. But they also proved to themselves that they don't have the maturity of these great teams to see these games through. And I think that's not just true of tonight, but many other games that they've lost. So, yeah. But good on Darko to even address this, because my biggest thing that I hate with Darko is just when he doesn't address it and he forces everything to look on the bright side. Like, I'm not trying to always look on the bright side. I like to embrace the darkness, to know that, what we need to improve on. Like, it's okay. I'm emotionally, like, able to look at negative things so that we can sort of move forward and avoid more negative things. Next question: why did Jacoby, IQ, and Shead play so much? I mean, they're good players, but obviously size is needed. If you're smart, you play Battle, Sandro, RJ. Again, another comment I disagree with. Battle Battle is not a strong defender, and that's probably going to be the limiting thing for him, is sort of his defense. He can knock down shots, there's no doubt, but he's not a strong defender. Him allowing Joe to get open for 3 and then fouling him on a flagrant closeout, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, come on, man. Like, he's got to walk a tightrope, and he did not walk. He fell off the tightrope on some of the minutes he played tonight. Sandro, one of the reasons why the Raptors struggle with physicality and these aggressive teams, Sandro struggles against physicality and aggressive teams. And so, yes, there have been lots of games this season where Sandro's played awesome, and that's what's allowed the Raptors to win those games. And then after those games, we're always like, my God, how are we going to pay Sandro? Oh my God, Bobby, you screwed up again. You can't pay Sandro. But then you also have these games and we don't hear nothing about it, So let's see how the whole season goes. Let's see how the playoffs goes. I want to keep Sandro on long term. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great, he's a very good player. But this is something for him to overcome as well. I didn't like seeing him get bullied out there tonight. The reason he got his minutes cut is because he got bullied and he wasn't helping on the glass. And then RJ had a really hot start to the game, was great, but then defensively, and again, the Raptors were making that comeback on defense. RJ can be like, he's not really a space cadet on defense, like he's not paying attention or something, but it feels like there's like moments where he's not really connecting on like, okay, I've got to communicate the switch here. I have to be here in this help position, or I need to be rotating here. And he just looked kind of slow doing it in terms of, and it's not even necessarily his like he's not the most laterally quick player. So I'm not expecting him to like, dart around, but I think part of what makes you a better defender is the awareness. And it just felt like RJ was really defensively unaware tonight. And this is not a uncommon thing with RJ. I think RJ has had better moments defensively, and I think it's a point of pride. It's something that they've challenged him to do. And, when he's in interviews, he'll really try to bring up his two-way play. And I think that, IQ, who's his biggest backer in that locker room, will always try to sort of talk up RJ on a defensive end as well. But I think we also can see the tape and even just watch the game. He gets lost a lot on defense. So I don't mind them benching 3 bad defenders for at least 2 good defenders in Jacoby and Jamal. And I thought IQ wasn't good defensively either tonight. I think he just got pushed around. He might have beat Wallace to the spot, but you never really feel like IQ wants to stand in there and take a hit ever. And I feel like defenses knew that, and they were able to push through him even when he got to the spot. What's the point of getting to the spot if you're going to get pushed off that spot, right? You got to either stand in there and play. He had to stand in there and play tougher defensively. But I actually think they made the right call in terms of the 3 guys that they played towards the end there. Grady needs to spend time with the 905 and find his game, get like 25 to 30 minutes of run every night and rediscover it. I guess. But I think assuming that Grady going down to the 905 he's going to dominate, I wouldn't say that's a guarantee. Granted, we've only really seen Grady with the 905 in his first year with the Raps. And now, again, he was a rookie. But, didn't really exactly dominate down there. And I don't necessarily know what they're expecting Grady to do in a 905 context. Go out there and shoot 30 times. You can do that. And certainly teams have used the G League like that. But like I said previously, the Raptors, one of the big goals this season is to actually reestablish 905 as a competitive product. If you know anything about, the way that team is played, and I don't blame people for not tapping in because it's like, dog, it's a G League. I understand. But they've been playing super aggressive, super tough. You think Darko was intense. Drew Jones, who's been coaching the 905, is freaking getting into it with referees all game. We'll get into it in the game with Elijah. I've literally seen it happen and talked to Elijah about it. If you go back to some of the interviews we've done down there, their goal is to be serious with that group. So, how are you going to tell a serious group who have all season played like dogs that, hey, just kidding, tonight Grady needs to come in and take 30 shots and probably make 10. It's like, that's not going to help necessarily either, right? So, I don't know. The season, there is still 2 more months. There will still be opportunities for everyone to play. But I think more than anything else, Grady's got to come in and show focus. And if I were Grady, I'd be going in 2-a-days, for shooting. So I would do my practice, and then at night, there's always a trainer around. Grab a trainer, go to the gym, just work on the shots. I'd be freaking shooting until my arm is falling off right now, because what else am I going to do to prove myself? I got to make sure that is there, I know I already can't be a better defender than Jacoby. That's just not possible for Grady. So then I got to be a better shooter than Jacoby, who's making shots right now. So it's hard, but I got to be a better shooter than Jacoby, and I got to be a better shooter than Battle. So that even if Darko says okay, I'm not making shots, I'm still not going to go to Battle, because he's going to see that I put in more work than him. And there are leaderboards in the locker room. Sometimes you walk into the gym and you'll see the Noah's, tracking data in terms of who's shot the most shots in the last month or so. And I've been in there the last couple of times, the couple of times where I've got glimpses. I'm not saying I'm seeing the full season data, so I'm not reporting that. But I'm saying you get in there and it's Battle's always number 1 in terms of who gets to show shots up. And it's well, can't be a coincidence. He's also the best shooter, right? So just do that. You have to. The urgency is now for a guy like Grady. And I like Grady a lot. We hung out with Grady for several days. He's a really nice kid. He had a lot of time for young campers, and I really respect that. He's been raised really well. He's really polite, well mannered. He plays hard when he's in the game, but I think the level is starting to get to him, and it's a little telling that the Raptors are trying to win this year, and that's the year Grady can't get minutes. He got minutes during the rebuild, man, but they're not trying to rebuild. They're trying to win these games. And Darko, even for look, Darko probably one of the nicest coaches in the league, maybe most generous in terms of player development time and everything like that. He's given them opportunities, but if you don't deliver, and it's a tough game against OKC, you're not going to see them in time. And at this rate, you go to the playoffs, you're probably not going to see time in the playoffs either, right? So, IQ. IQ is not aggressive when BI, RJ, and Scotty are on the floor. He really takes a step back. I think yes and no. I think really it's a case of like how many guys can really get going at once. Last game against against Milwaukee, obviously IQ was super hot, super aggressive, so he was going. That game, RJ was struggling. This game, to start the game, RJ was playing great, so he was knocking down threes, getting to the basket, getting steals, going the other way. So, IQ sort of took him time to get going. Ultimately, if the two of those guys can combine for what they did tonight, like 38 points on 14 of 29 shooting, combined for 8 threes in that stretch, I'm more than happy to take that from both of those guys. I think my bigger thing for me with IQ tonight was a couple turnovers, which, is usually uncharacteristic for him. He's actually one of the more responsible point guards in the league in terms of taking care of the ball. He's been really low turnover of late. And I think the other part was just I wanted to see him step up more defensive against Wallace. Like, man, take some blocking fouls at least, you know what I mean? Like, he just allowed guys to turn the corner, and then they make the first move physically on him, and then he can't recover. It's just like, you gotta, like, I mean, it's especially stands out when there's a game that features on the other end Lou Dort, Caruso, Wallace. These guys are so physical defensively, and I'm just like, well, you're not even that much smaller than some of these guys. Like, yeah, against Lou Dort, sure, yeah, he's a linebacker, but like, Caruso's a corner just like you, man. Get in there, I just needed to see more physical toughness from IQ, and I know that's not one of his strengths, but it's a mindset thing. You got to decide that you are, Another question here. Darko's defense is about overhelping, playing with hands, and jumping on pump fakes. I mean, man, I don't really think so, man. I mean, like, look, I understand. Like, the loss is frustrating. The Raptors did not play well for the majority of the game. There's lots of reasons to critique them. But once again, I disagree with this particular critique. Yes, the Raptors give up threes, and they are more help conscious than the average team, but they're really, like, not usually that bad. Like Darko said, that was not us today. Like, the focus wasn't there. Like, I agree with that. I think it's an execution issue. Raptors do give up threes. Part of that is because they haven't played with a center for most of the season, so they got to be more aggressive on some of these things. But this isn't exactly like those old Nick Nurse teams where they got to double the ball every single time and then rotate behind nonstop and always defend 4-on-3s, was where you give up a lot of threes. Like, that's not the typical outcome for how this group plays. The Raptors are full court pressure, on-ball pressure, sometimes have to foul because of that, and then they sometimes have really struggled with defensive rebounding like they did tonight. But, like, I don't know. They don't really overload on defense the way that I feel like it's being described here. Jumping on pump fakes, though, was weird because even Scotty was jumping on pump fakes, and I was just like, I don't know. Like, he's not typically a guy to do that, especially this season. So I just think today was, like, really out of character for the team. And, again, it was demonstrated by the coach and vocalized by the coach, which I appreciate because, again, I hate when he talks around the issue. Another question: how come they gave a 3 and straight line drive right after tying the game and Darko didn't call a timeout? I agree with you. I think that timeout should have been coming. I think you got to think timeout in the back of your mind just because of, like, yo, this team has put in so much energy to get back. Now you're in the game. Now cherish it, right? Again, like, the game state's going to change based on the moment. And I felt like, as soon as OKC started scoring again, you got to be able to call timeout and give your guys a little bit of a break and get them reorganized and refocus and get a good play out of execution. The Raptors are actually pretty good at executing after timeouts too, so there's an added benefit of that. But yeah, I think that should be one of the regrets for them. Like, I don't know why they were holding on to the last 2 timeouts that tightly. You call it a couple plays earlier, you could change the flow of the game. And look, a lot of the coaching is by feel, you know what I mean? Especially the in-game management. I think Darko's managing the broader strokes pretty well in terms of, like, how to manage the group. But I think moment to moment, how to manage just 1 or 2 plays or 1 or 2 minutes, that is also one of the key signs of like a great coach. And I want to see more of that from Darko. Even wasting the challenge like that he did tonight. I mean, you look at the game and it came down to a couple possessions. OKC being able to, erase 2 buckets from Toronto off of challenges is huge. Like, just absolutely huge. Versus the Raptors wasting their challenge right away. It's not great, So, why does this team stop playing team when does this team stop playing team politics and just play guys that are producing? I'm hoping the time is now for some of that. You look at the way that guys were played tonight. Sandro got 15 minutes, well below his season average. He wasn't producing. They didn't play him much. I mean, 1 of 7 for Sandro. That was not good. Getting blocked as well too. It was a really bad game for Sandro. Grady wasn't performing. He got 5 minutes. Came in after Jameson Battle, and Battle was playing better than him against Milwaukee. So he ends up being the 9th man. Grady ended up being the 10th man. Grady didn't play well in the 5 minutes. Didn't have an impact. Doesn't play in the second half. Like, that's kind of the way they should have been. RJ played well, so he played more minutes, but we've seen the team obviously cut RJ's minutes, not just because of injuries, because he's not been playing well. Last game he played 26, this game he plays 34, because he played better. Like, hopefully it stays like this, but I do agree with you. There has been a lot of like team politics up until this point. Another $2 here. What will Chrissy do? Shouts to Christopher Montesanti. Does Cason Wallace for CMB trade make sense? Man, Wallace is a really good player, but nah, not really. Well, actually, let's see. Okay, so Cason Wallace is up due for a payday soon. Man, if you had a Wallace IQ backcourt, that's kind of nice, actually. Wallace could do a lot of the defending. They can both kind of play on and off the ball. Man, I mean, I know we love CMB, but that I'd consider it. I'd consider it. I think it would be the Raptors trading from a position of strength, but I do think they probably see CMB maybe long term as a starter at center for them. But that you're always going to run into some mismatch issues with that. Ooh, that's a really tough one, man. Wallace is nice. Wallace is really nice. And I think he was actually picked 1 pick ahead of Grady too. That would have been tough. That would have been tough. That's interesting though. Good trade idea. I like that one. Maybe you got let me know if you guys like that trade. This one from Ricardo, who asks if the Raptors miss the playoffs next year, Darko gets fired. I mean, why are we talking about next year, man? We're in the midst of a playoff run right now. Like, I don't really want to talk about next year right now. To be honest, I got to see how the playoffs run the rest of the way. I think, if anything, after this season, if it goes the way it continues to go and there's not some sort of, like, major collapse, and knock on wood for that, but, like, if they maintain it like this, go to the playoffs, I think Darko gets an extension. So. Another question here. I don't know why Darko hates Trace so much. We've only seen him for, like, 20 minutes. Hey. You can't necessarily say this is on the front office, okay? Because the 2 times the Raptors have brought in an extra big for the season, both times Darko was like, screw that extra big. I'm not playing him, okay? So it's one thing to do that for a 10-day, like Mo Bamba, whatever. Like, maybe Mo Bamba's just not good enough to play. I think that's been determined by lots of organizations across the league, so they didn't really play Mo. Fine, okay. Now, I would think, okay, was Jakob healthy? Yes, okay, I would want him and CMB to play the minutes at center. But without Jakob, and in a game when there's a lot of physicality on the other end, and Mamu's not playing well, maybe a little bit of Trace Jackson Davis wouldn't have hurt. You know what I mean? Just a little bit of physicality, a little bit more solid screens to, like, get BI and IQ some room to operate around the harassers that are guarding them. Like, but I think for Darko, like, he really prioritizes that floor spacing, that ability to play 5 out. I wouldn't even say it's like a, he's new to the team and adjusting kind of thing, because I think Trace is pretty smart, and, like, a lot of what the Raptors want him to do is very similar to what the Warriors wanted him to do. Like, I just think that maybe Darko doesn't like playing centers, and that's partially informing how they're structuring the roster for the coach, and also why Trace and Mo, the latest 2 centers they brought in, have basically never played. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe he just likes small ball. I think he probably just likes small ball, to be honest. The question here: RJ's been averaging 13 points last 10 games on low field goal percentage. Yeah, it's been off for RJ for sure. But tonight he played well, especially started the game really well, knocked down 3 threes in the fourth quarter, finished the game 8 of 15. I think there's still moments where RJ is like making the wrong read. He gets blocked a lot on drives, and that's always a sign that you're sort of like not making the right read if you're not even able to squeeze the shot up without getting blocked. But it was a good sign to see him playing better tonight, and it's a really good sign that he actually played 34 minutes. It's a good sign he was able to do it. But yeah, I think RJ played well today on the offensive end. Obviously on defense, he's always going to leave you wanting. Tonight, I think maybe more than usual, but offensively, he was also doing pretty close to what we expect. Like this was like similar to what we saw from RJ at the start of the year, where he was shooting around 50%, shot well from 3, and had 20 points. Like that's what you want from RJ. Another question here. What do you think RJ's next contract will look like? Giving him anything over 20 will be a massive overpay. Well, that's the part that's awkward, right? Because I don't feel like RJ's going to want to take a pay cut off his current deal. Now, granted, the market is the market. So you let him go to free agency and you say, okay, let me see someone else pay you the same deal that you're currently on. And I can see the market saying that to him. But I think the hard part, especially negotiating on an extension where it's more one-on-one and you already have the player, and again, he's Canadian, all that kind of stuff, and he's for the most part done really well for you in terms of what you've asked him to do in your team context. It's hard. I can imagine it's very hard for Bobby and the front office to be negotiating for a position of like, hey, we want you to take a pay cut after he's played his best basketball in Toronto. And as stubborn as that perspective might be, I think that's part of the reason why I don't think an extension will be reached this summer. And I think that especially for a front office that, Bobby has shown on the record and also with his actions that he really likes the optionality. Okay. One of these NBA mumble jumble word salad terms that like a Whitney Halberstrom would use in industry. If you're watching season 4 Masterpiece, can't wait for the finale on Sunday. But like the optionality of having a large expiring contract for a player that's playing well enough, like it's not a negative value contract anymore, particularly when it's expiring. You take his expiring and Grady's expiring going into next season. Now you have an actual trade chip, whether you want to trade something, make a trade early, like at the draft or in start of free agency, or you want to wait till in season to make a trade next year. That gives you much more optionality, because this year, part of the reason why the trade deadline was so dead was the Raptors only had huge contracts that were still long-term money, or they had small contracts that they could use to maybe duck the tax but make nothing meaningful with, which is like what happened with Ochai. So, yeah. I don't know. I think it's like pretty clear where this RJ thing is going to end up. I'm not going to lie to you. Another question here. The Raptors have 9 games left against the top 6 teams in each conference. How many wins will they get? Okay, that's actually a good one. Let's actually look up the Raptors' remaining schedule here and see what their top 6 opponents will be looking like the rest of the way. So, okay, they play San Antonio tomorrow, then the Knicks, Minnesota. Is Minnesota top 6? I don't know if they actually are top 6, to be honest. Hold on. Let me just double check, because I don't know where the standings are out west as much as I do in the east. Minnesota is 6. Okay, so they'll be in there as well, so that's 3. Phoenix is in there as well, I believe. No, Phoenix is 7th. Okay, Houston is in there as well. So Houston, Denver. Then they have Detroit. They must have Detroit twice, don't they? Am I missing a game here? Yes, they have Detroit twice. Then they got Boston and New York. So those are the 9. Okay. I'm going to go loss to San Antonio. Loss to the Knicks. They play 1 game in Minnesota. I'm going to say they win against Minnesota. Raptors have actually played Minnesota really well over the years. I think they win against Houston. Houston's a mess right now. And I think they win against Houston. So that's 2 and 2 so far for me. Then they play the Pistons. They lose. I don't think they'll ever beat the Pistons like this. The 2 and 3. Nuggets on the road. they'll put up a good fight. Nuggets haven't been as sharp since Jokic has come back. He's not been 100%. They dropped a couple there, but I think they lose to Denver realistically. So that's 2 and 4. Then they play the Pistons again. They lose that one, so 2 and 5. Play against at Boston, no way, auto loss. 2 and 6. And then the game at the end against New York, the Knicks may be in a relatively solid position. That'll be game 81 of the season. The Raptors might also be relatively solid, so that's more of a coin flip game. If you had to guess, maybe 3 and 6 or 2 and 7, but that's sort of how I'm sort of like eyeballing it at the moment. So if they get 2, that's not bad, which is kind of sick to say, but we know we're not a true contending team. There's not a great like amount of information, or it's not intellectually interesting to be like Raps are a fake good team. Like I know that, everyone knows that. I think no one's even conceding or asserting otherwise. I think it's like a young team that really is trying to sort of get to the next level, but we know they're not on the next level. It's not particularly interesting to say they're frauds. We know they are, you know what I mean, in that sense. Like it is what it is. Darko's 1 and 10 against top 6 teams. That's ass. Well, it's certainly not great. I haven't really felt like, okay, Darko is like helping us punch above our weight in that sense. Let's take 2 more before we pivot here on the show. Question: what player, dead or alive, would you like Scotty to work with next offseason to help his offensive game? What player? I think I just want to see him keep working on his jump shot, to be honest. You know, however that happens, like I would love to see him do that. I mean, KD takes a lot of, like, he works out with a lot of players in the offseason. And you know, he's shown pretty strong willingness to do that. I think it's just like any way Scotty can sort of get more in rhythm as he shoots, because it always feels kind of like Scotty's shot feels like disconnected, or it feels like it happens in stages. He's not jumping much onto it. It's kind of like forcing it across the front of his face, and it's kind of more pronounced. Like anything that can make it a little bit smoother, I think that's actually fine. And then last one, no dunks call. The Hawks G League game tonight. Why doesn't Hello Welcome call 905 games? I would love that. Okay, whoever is running 905, is it still Chad Sanders? You know, I think, you know, the guys there, Matt Carlin, Warren Ward, Lindsay, they do an amazing job on a 905 broadcast. But, you know, if they need a day off, or if it's Asian Heritage Month, you know, like, let us do it. What's the worst thing that could happen, man? You know, I watched enough G League games. Like, I know who Tyreek Key is. Like, you know, let's make it happen. Let's make a petition to make this happen, okay? Let me call one game. If it's a disaster, don't let me call any other games, okay? But just let me try it, please. Please let me try it. So, there you go. Last question. This is Bobby's first season as the boss. We're playoff bound. That's a successful season in my eyes. It is. It is. I don't know, it's underwhelming, but it is. Like, it just... Look, this team was never going to make a bigger jump than they won right now, okay? Going into the season, the best case scenario you could have had for this team was they win like 45 games, they go to the first round, and then they lose. But Brandon Ingram plays at an all-star level, which he has. Scotty Barnes makes a jump in his game, which he has. Some of the young guys prove that they can contribute to winning context, which they have at times. They make small marginal moves to get under the tax, which they did. They didn't give up their first-round picks in some random win-now trade like trading for Sabonis, which they clearly weren't interested in, despite all the reporting around it. Wasn't interested. They, you know, try to work through the course of the season. They get more of an excitement back in the fan base. Like, look, the Raptors started the season in a blackjack sense. They started with like 13. That's just a shitty hand. You know, they hit a couple times. They got an ace. They got a 5. Now they're at like 18. You got to sit with 18. You're probably not going to win most times with 18. The dealer's probably going to outdraw you at certain points or whatever. But like, it is what it is. You kind of are making like the most of sort of where this group is at. So, like, I think bigger picture wise, they have done a good job. And at this point, they need to sort of change their cards, not just like, you know, lament the fact that they got an 18. So, All right, last one, Chrome, because I don't want to extend the show further. But question: last two teams that got the first round pick were play-in teams, Hawks and Dallas. Do you think that these anti-tanking rules they want to come up with will further help play-in teams get our better picks? I mean, yeah, they obviously flatten the lottery, so that's gonna lead to a bigger distribution of where the lottery odds are gonna happen. But actually, I don't know. I think Atlanta got lucky, and I think the Dallas one was slightly rigged. But I don't think the NBA rigs the draft every year, but I certainly think it's very convenient some of the outcomes that pop out. Like when Derrick Rose and the Bulls, Derrick Rose in the draft, clear number one pick from Chicago. Bulls have a 1.7% chance of winning the lottery. They win it. They get Derrick Rose. The Bulls are revived, at least temporarily, until he got hurt. Or the Cavs are in the lottery. They're not the ones that are favored to win the lottery. They don't have the most odds, but LeBron's in the draft. They get LeBron. Or it is the Pelicans are being sold, and they're literally owned by the league in the temporary moment. And yes, they were a bad team, but boom, they win the draft and they get Anthony Davis. All of a sudden, the team is absolutely sold, and they're able to ride that out for a while. Or in this case, Luka gets traded in one of the worst trades, in this decade at least of NBA basketball. And all of a sudden, the Mavericks win the pick. It's just convenient how all those things happen. All those things happen. It just feels convenient. I'm not saying it's rigged every year. I'm not even saying it's for sure rigged, but something very coincidental about all that. There's, like, I understand once in a while you hit on like a 2% chance. That happens. But it becomes strange to me when you hit 4 straight of those in a row. So. That's just my personal opinion, though. Like, it's not like any reporting. It just feels too convenient as a basketball consumer. So appreciate your questions. I think those actually were some really good ones, and I thank you guys for engaging on that front. Before we actually pivot to the 3 stars, want to look ahead at some of the games that are taking place tomorrow. Obviously, we'll be watching the Raptors game, but elsewhere in the association, there will be a pretty good game going on between the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets. Ooh, that one's going to be fun. Boston has been the team that has defied all odds on the season. I actually think Joe Mazzulla is like the clear-cut coach of the year for me. They've been super impressive, and I hate to say that as a Raptor fan, but, they just have been. Like, I give credit when I got to give credit. And the Denver Nuggets will be hosting the Boston Celtics. Celtics already got an impressive win on the road by absolutely humbling the Lakers on Pat Riley night. I'm sure the Celtics fans really enjoyed rubbing it in the face of the Laker fans that night, beating them by 20, and Peyton Pritchard, doing what he does in that game. But this game, especially with the fact that Denver has been a little shaky. I gotta say, I watched their game against the Clippers. They lost that one as well. Had a chance to tie it, but you saw Jamal Murray, who got fouled for 3, could have had a chance to tie the game. He made the first 2 shots, but missed the third one. They lost to the Clippers in that game. I feel like Denver has been a little shaky recently. So this segment is a presentation of ToonieBet online sportsbook and casino. Thousands of slot games and live casino at your fingertips, and a sportsbook made for Ontario. Get your game on with ToonieBet. For that game, I think I'm going to take Boston plus 115 over Denver. Boston is actually the underdogs there, but Boston with the 3-point shooting, the space to floor, the way they play pick and roll. Jaylen Brown genuinely been awesome all season. Bully ball. I don't really see a good matchup on that end. So, if I had to lay something down, I think I will lay actually in favor of the underdogs there for Boston. So make sure you hit up ToonieBet.ca for all your sports betting needs. ToonieBet is licensed and regulated by the AGCO and iGaming Ontario. 18 plus, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. All right, to wrap up your 3 stars from this loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. First star, we go to Scottie. 15 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, 4 blocks. The only thing I would really quibble with is the fact that he got started slow and he really couldn't knock down the threes. But it felt like he was kind of playing through it, like uphill and in mud all night, but he found a super high gear and was very impressed with to see what he did defensively, in particular in the fourth quarter, kind of pulling the whole team up with him. Second star, we'll get out to Jacoby Walter. 17 points, 4 rebounds for young Kobe off the bench. Knocking down 5 threes is always great, but, you also see his defensive effort on that front too. if he can keep knocking down those threes, man, that spot is his, man. And I think there's a future starter there for Jacoby as well. So I look for him to get stronger physically and get even more consistent with the three-point shot. But yeah, young Kobe was good tonight. And then your third star could go a number of ways with this. RJ had a hot start. IQ finished strong. But I think I'm gonna go with Jamal, actually. 13 points, 4 assists for Jamal. Untimely turnover, he's got to stop, man. They got to start implementing, like, you got to get fined $250 or something every time you turn the ball over in the fourth quarter. Like, I actually think that for the Raptors, like, this fourth quarter turnover thing is such a big issue for them right now. They got to really cut it out, and they got to treat it like speeding or something. Like, you just got to give them a fine. You know, I feel like I should take $250 off Jamal right now for that pass to Scottie late, but still played relatively well. 5 of 8 from the field is very good for Jamal. Knocked down the 2 threes, one of them which tied the game at 101. So yeah, I think Jamal should get the third star here. Your Gerald Henderson Award winner for who randomly torched the Raps. I mean, all due respect to Isaiah Joe and Lugan Stort, I'm gonna go with Cason Wallace. That was a sensational performance, but a lot of OKC secondary guys played well. They needed to play shorthanded, and they did the job. So that's it. Thanks all for listening. Drop a like on the stream if you can. If you enjoyed this, I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and watching. And we'll be back tomorrow after the game against the San Antonio Spurs, and then we'll be back on Thursday with more programming, and Friday as well. If you haven't already, send in a question to the Banter Pod. We'll be recording that on Friday, and we'll be once again sending out merch to our top 5 favorite questions sent in. So if you haven't sent in a question already, you can send them to info@stephenlebron.com, and look forward to just hanging out. All right? So thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate you guys, and catch you tomorrow. Same time.